Alright guys, such Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far, one of the most remarkable tournaments of all time in the Call of Duty world. If I was writing the script for this tournament, I'm simply not sure that I could have written it quite this well. OpTic Texas, last year they completed an unbelievable turnaround. Last at the previous major before champs, then they won the whole thing. This year, they've decided to try and do the same feat, but over the course of the entire season. A disastrous season in so many respects, and at the end of the year, they are now on the verge and in the World Championship Grand Final, looking like the dominant force of the tournament so far. Atlanta FaZe, their chief rivals going into the day, potentially expected to meet them in that grand finals, for today at the very first time of asking. Both of the two chief favourites coming into the tournament out already. What is going on out there in Kitchener, and what are the narratives that this is creating, because they are getting very serious indeed, and very quickly at that. We're going to talk about everything today. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. So much support on the channel over the last few days. It's been phenomenal to see, and thankfully after the month break, we've had some serious drama. We're going to start quickly here. These are your 4 challengers teams at the World Cup. Mamba, Vivid, Mack and Craze. They won the previous event, so they were already qualified. Diamond Con, Assault, Linden, 2 Real, Harry, Mythics, Bance and Henry. Can you believe it, baby? Bance is inevitable. He's back there again. Honestly, like, unbelievable stuff from him and the team. I thought that was a great story. Brack, Prolute, Stan, Yanuli as well. Many players that we know, we've heard of before, so I know that there was maybe some people hoping to see some players that we hadn't really seen much of previously, let's say, at the World Cup, to see how they compete against the pros, but still, I think some of these guys can seriously make a name for themselves. And look, let's be real, the way that Mercules has come into this OpTic team and turned them into the team that he seemingly has done so, it's not just Mercules, but he was, of course, the catalyst for this turnaround. Every other team on the entire grid, as it were, in the Call of Duty space has to be thinking, damn, what is possible if we make the right move at the right time for some of these kids down in challenges? This was the schedule on the day, starting later than maybe would have been nice here in Europe, but, you know, whatever, I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to get into the European team of the day. That was Miami Heretics. They played their first series against FaZe. Here we go, they say. They were pretty locked in. And I couldn't believe my eyes watching this series, I'll be honest. The map 1 looked like it was going to be pretty business as usual. Super tight affair. FaZe had a nice advantage. And then FaZe threw away the map 1 in a way that I can't really explain. I mean, I can explain why it happens, but like, I very rarely see FaZe play in this manner. They had a massive lead game 1. They were up 70 to 80 points. Miami brought it back, and like, you know, it was acceptable that Miami would bring it back. Rencor turned it around, you know, Super turned up a bit. Okay, they brought it back, fair enough, it was a tie game. But then there was a P2 that FaZe had full control of. It looked like they were going to close it out right then and there, but Simp pushes out the right lane, dies for free. aBeZy does the same thing 5 seconds later, and they both threw their lives away. They lose the time on P2. Then they go to this hard point, as we see right here. And aBeZy, you know, he chal's mid, dies. I think there was one chal that he made, like 20 seconds or so before this clip, where he died for free for no reason. Then he chaled mid again. I mean, it wasn't just aBeZy, but like the whole team was running, dying, no trade, staggering. Like the comms must have been very chaotic. And Miami capitalized spectacularly. They bring a comeback that they should never have had the right to do. And even though at the end, one of the FaZe guys spawns out, it was too little too late. And still after the game 1, you think, okay, you know what, FaZe, they might bounce back in this series, but no, like Miami was super locked in. This was an unbelievable round where they were up 4-1 on championship points. And then Rencor manages, due to the elevator shaft here, the nade drops down and blows up his whole team. And then, thankfully for Rencor, he clutches the 1v1 to win the round regardless. Heretics quickly go up 2-0. And a couple of seconds later, all of a sudden, you know, they go to the control and they wave them goodbye out of the tournament, right? I mean, this is an Atlanta FaZe team. I mean, this is a protocol control. That was not close. Like, this was not close. Body shots were happening the very first rounds of the map. Like, Real climbed up the ladder, smoked someone and shot his body. They had the confidence to do that, and they had the confidence to do that against Atlanta FaZe, a team that after Thieves went out, you know, we talked about it after Thieves and FaZe dropped to losers. It was like, who do you take? Do you take Thieves and FaZe as a collective, or do you take the field? And at the time, it was kind of difficult to argue which one you take, because the feeling was that Thieves and FaZe could still make a serious run. Well, Thieves' run disappeared immediately, and Heretics took down FaZe in a 3-0 fashion, right? I mean, Drazah's famous thing, 3-0'd when it mattered, ... You guys can fill in the blanks on that. They turn up to this championship. They got 3-0'd twice when it mattered. Once in winners by OpTic, once in losers by Miami. Like, absolute scenes. Look, Miami deserves so much credit. I've loved this team this season, the way that they play, the way that they fight, like the passion they have, and everything on that regard. It's been a pleasure to watch them play this year. and the progress that they've made. But for FaZe, I mean, this is the story of FaZe, right? This series is the story of FaZe, and how the hell this team coming into this tournament. I mean, look at this. The number 1, number 2 seeds, the best players in the entire world, Simp, HyDra, Cellium, Scrappy. These were considered to be pretty much unanimously the 4 best players of the entire season, and that I think is justified. They turned up to this tournament, both of them are gone by the middle of Saturday, like way before the tournament is even over. And we've got to talk about this narrative around FaZe, because what does this mean? What does this say about the current situation? Simp's career started with winning champs, second at champs, winning champs, second at champs. Since then, his champs results have been 3rd, 6th, and now 6th again. 2 years in a row, this team with Drazah, who at times, both seasons, looked like and were the best team in the game, has bottled it at the World Championship and come top 6. Like, what the hell were Thieves and FaZe doing for the last month? I genuinely want to know, because this is totally unacceptable. Simp this tournament, I mean, look, Don was saying, and I'm going to clown him tomorrow on the pre-show, before the tournament started, that if Simp wins this event, he's the GOAT. And, well, I think the conversation gets very interesting now as to what that looks like, right? Like, where does Simp sit all time? Where do FaZe, as a team, as an era, as it were, sit all time? Their reign this year, FaZe, in every regard, came to an end. They were no longer the number 1 team in the season standings, as they have been for the last 5 years. Thieves beat them there, and they've bottled it at the world, you know, they've bombed out the World Championship top 6. The whole idea of this FaZe era, this FaZe dynasty or whatever, like, has kind of come crumbling down today in many respects. Simp ended this tournament with a 0.8, and it's the lowest ever KD that he's had on an event. It's the first time that he's ever had under a 0.9. I mean, that says something about how good Simp is, absolutely. But it also shows how absolutely shambolic this tournament was for FaZe. Like, they just looked pretty lost on the map. It's difficult to explain, but what is evident is that this was the biggest tournament of the season, and they played nowhere near their level. And I think, again, look, OpTic, we're going to talk about them. They've played unbelievably well. Last year's World Championship that OpTic won, I didn't think they played as well as they could have done. I think Major 3 last year, where they won in Toronto, that was the best that OpTic looked all year. Last year at Champs, OpTic were very good enough to win, but I think in many respects their rivals dropped the ball. Last year, FaZe were nowhere, Toronto were nowhere, New York weren't even really that good, but they made the finals. OpTic managed to win it, and OpTic, if they keep playing like they did today, no one can beat them, right? The way that they're currently playing is the highest level of COD I've seen all year, and it comes now. It's remarkable, to say the least, and probably some of the highest COD, like, level of COD I've seen played in the last 6 years since the exhibition of the CDL actually came into effect, the inauguration of the CDL. But it is still a fact that with OpTic not dropping a map yet, the rivals are dropping the ball. Like, Thieves have dropped the ball massively, FaZe have dropped the ball massively, and it's, you know, the reason why this championship potentially tomorrow might not be as competitive as it could otherwise have been. But who knows what's going to happen on the Sunday, of course. It's a brand new day. But as Drazah says, back-to-back champs performance is pathetic. Teams have better teamwork and play the game better than us, which should never be a thing. And I think for Drazah, you know, it does raise some serious questions. I saw some stats flying around about Drazah's, let's say, performance at the World Championship and how he's done over the last few years. Drazah's results at his first couple of World Championships as well. Back in MW19, I think they were 6th, maybe OGLA. The year after in, I mean, Thieves were, what, top 8, were they, on Cold War? Then it was Vanguard where he won. And then since then, he's placed top 8, top 6, top 6. And I mean, look, at Modern Warfare 2 champs, he had a 0.8. Modern Warfare 3 champs, he had a 0.84. This champs, he had a 0.83. I mean, you know, you can't deny there's going to be a narrative people talk about here when you've got FaZe, you've got Drazah, just, again, massively underperforming at the World Championship. So, wow, I mean, what a result. I didn't see this one coming, really. Like, what can you say? aBeZy had a 0.7, Simp has a 0.75. Like, you're not going to see that every day. But if there's any time that it's simply inexcusable, it's here at the World Championship. So that's the story on FaZe, and there's going to be lots more to say on them over the coming days, because you come top 6 with this team at Champs 2 years in a row. It's almost impossible to imagine that they can keep this roster the same, even, you know, whatever happens at the World Cup. The other series, apart from the OpTic one, I'm going to have to go through relatively quickly here because so much talk about FaZe, so much talk about OpTic. This was a really interesting series. Ultra played Surge. Surge have generally had their number most of this year. There was a bit of competition in this one from Ultra, but at the end of the day, it wasn't especially close. Ultra went down. They tried, home tournament, but in the end they fall short. And as Hitch says, you'll remember this. This is when Toronto put in the chat the other day, is your beloved OpTic or FaZe hosting a tournament or whatever. Tried to say, lol, okay, cover that $300 Uber, your players, they deserve it. And people are talking about, hope they're not, you know, finding their players or whatever for parking in the facility. So, you know, Toronto, they did a bit of clowning. They get clowned in return. It is what it is. I'm sure that's another narrative from the weekend. This page seems to have broken. If I hit the refresh, we might find the actual answers. That's right. Surge took took them down 3-0. The vault was close. It was competitive. Ultra will feel like they probably could have won that map in hindsight. Neptune had a big takeover game mode. I mean, it was a nice comeback from them. 6-4 in the search, 3-0 in the control, and they bomb out of the tournament. So the home team goes out. Surge, the vanquishers of Thieves, they carry on. But let's talk about OpTic Texas, because what the hell has happened with this team? Now, look, had Mercury's not come in, I don't think this ever would have happened. Certainly not in the way that it has done. But the level that OpTic are playing right now is absolutely untouchable. We've not seen a team play like this all year. We talked about it going into champs, how this OpTic team always has this in the locker, especially with Mercury's. It felt like they had it in the locker. But the idea that they're this dominant in every regard, and they're playing with such confidence that it feels almost impossible to stop them. And they knew they were playing Boston today. I think Karma did a pretty smart thing. They chose Team B so that the search and destroy that Boston wanted, that would have to wait until map 5, giving OpTic ample time to close out the series before then, because I feel like at the end of the day, OpTic likely will have scrimmed Boston quite a lot in the last month. That's my feeling. I don't know if this is true, but you look at the bracket, OpTic probably wouldn't have expected to play Boston in the bracket. They would have likely been scrimming against each other because they're not on the same size. It's probably that OpTic came into the series very well versed and likely, given the relative strength of these teams, likely in practice. At the end of the day, Boston, they're a Neslo team, aren't they? That's how they've done their damage this tournament. That's how they've set themselves up for success this tournament, and it's worked out spectacularly well for them. But obviously, OpTic were going to be favoured in the hard point, and they're up this game 190-30. At that point, it's almost impossible to imagine that it's going to go the other way. Boston were pretty valiant in their attempt, but even then, they went down in a similar way to what Toronto did the day before. And then OpTic just couldn't lose a search and destroy round to save their life. Everything was clinical. I mean, it was honestly unbelievable to watch, because we've talked about it for years now, that OpTic, when push comes to shove, they like a scam, don't they? They like a scam. They like a 3v1 to, throw a life away and all this. And occasionally today you saw it from Huke or somebody else, or from Shotzzy, maybe throwing a life away that wasn't necessary because they're just feeling it, right? But they'd still win the rounds anyway. There were so many situations where they were in a 2v1 and it was Mercury's and somebody else, and they would play it perfectly. And it's like, this should be basic stuff, but it's OpTic just executed flawlessly in like every regard when it comes to teamwork. And you mesh that with the talent they have and how prepared they look. It's like, how do you beat them, right? Like, there is no gap in the gameplay right now. And then you get a moment like this from Mercury's. And yeah, they actually lost this round. Boston were really impressive to actually make this a competitive map 3. But what can I say about this? Like, Mercury's gets the first. This guy doesn't miss. He guns Snoopy for the second, runs in here and just destroys Awakening for the third, shoots his body. And then a couple of seconds later, they try and gun him down. It looks like, yeah, they're going to stop Mercury's here. And okay, eventually they do. But he hits this shot onto Cammy, and Cammy just can't kill him. Like, this guy, where did he come from, right? Like, I mean, I'm being serious. This guy was stuck in challenges half the year. Think about the other players that might be able to make some serious impact in this league. It's a really exciting thought. But the way that OpTic played today, it's difficult to comprehend. And it's not just Mercury's, right? Like, they lost 18 maps in a row earlier this season. They've now won 9 straight maps at the World Championship. Like, you couldn't write this script. You really couldn't. And I mentioned it today on the pre-show with Don. It's like, even before today's series, there was a genuine opportunity for them to go flawless this tournament. And like, it's still very, very unlikely. But I mean, I don't know, it's actually crazy. It's crazy. As OpTic said, they haven't lost a map yet. Like, what am I watching? What is going on? The fact of the matter is, Mercury's has like a 1.55 KD this tournament. He has inner 1.5s. It's ridiculous. It's higher than Formal's numbers. And yeah, Formal's numbers happened over a million different series. This is not quite the case nowadays. But Dashy is sitting at like a 1.44. The AR duo has been unbelievable, as has the SMG duo. Like, everything is just perfect for OpTic right now. I mean, look at these numbers, right? They win the series. 0.7 for Purge, 0.7 for Cammy, 0.6 for Awakening, 0.6 for Sleepy. Like, what is this? Is this ranked play? Is this, an online match where somebody's got 100 ping because the CDL messed up the servers? Like, this is not meant to be the World Championship Winners Finals. You're not meant to go into the World Championship Winners Finals with a 1.4 and come out of the series with a 1.5. Like overall, it's just not meant to happen. OpTic make back-to-back Champs Grand Finals in the most astonishing fashion you're ever going to see. Can they convert? I mean, look, that is now the serious question. So many storylines and narratives from this, it's actually difficult to put them all together. I'll just share this one before we talk about the final series I wanted to mention in this video. That's Shotzzy and Dashy. Dashy's career especially, until last year, was probably an insane gap between the talent that he clearly had and the accolades that he had to go along with it. Last year's champs win did a lot to cement that. The idea that he could potentially go back to back, like, that's a totally different question, right? The fact that Shotzzy and Dashy could accomplish that for the first time in 5 years and become only a couple of extra players to have ever done it in the history of Call of Duty, another remarkable statistic. The loser semi-finals between Miami Heretics and Vancouver Surgeons, like, what an absolute grueler this series turned out to be. I'm going to mention the losers finals just tomorrow morning because they started the game so late today. It's already 2 in the morning here, so I'm just going to get this video out with the geese or and we'll talk in depth tomorrow what this World Championship Grand Final looks like. But Heretics, as I said earlier, what a valiant run they made this tournament. But I know that many will look at this and say, yeah, maybe if Heretics had won this, it could have made for a more entertaining Grand Finals. I guess we'll see. Obviously, Heretics came on the losing end of the Boston Breach Game 5 Round 11 defeat. They took down FaZe in impressive fashion, then they turn up here, another Game 5 Round 11. They've got the attack on the red card, and it's Vancouver Surge that get the job done. So well drilled, so well prepared, made a crazy losers run here, and Miami out of the tournament, top 4. So frustrating, I think, for Miami, right? Because this was maybe the one that they could have won. It felt like it was maybe opening up for Heretics to make a run. The fact that they beat FaZe, Thieves were out of the tournament. They were top 3 last events. They're 2 vanquishers back in Dallas were out of the tourney. Maybe it could have been the turn of the Europeans to make a run here to the Championship Grand Final, but not how it's going to be. Abuzah seemed to be beefing heavy with Super after this one concluded, and Heretics out of the tournament in top 4. So yeah, I feel it's a bittersweet one in a way, because the Game 1 Vault, they'll definitely feel like they should have won this, right? Like, look at the advantage they had. This Game 1 Vault was, not unlosable, but Surge won it in a really impressive way. They then bounced back Miami in the search. They lost the protocol. They won their Hassie, and then they lose. I mean, it's such a heartbreaking way to lose for Heretics, really, especially because Rencor just had a major series. I mean, he had a 1.5 this series, Rencor, for 111 kills. Like, he was on fire, but it wasn't enough for Heretics in the end. So they bow out. We'll do the full breakdown of the World Championship Grand Final tomorrow. Massively intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.